Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to the most important edition of breaking news that we have done for the last year and a half since we've been doing these programs every single day. Today is Monday, the 9th day of December, 2024, and the top story this morning can be summed up by the following headline in Breitbart News: World Shock. Syrian regime falls, Mideast changed forever again. Now, it is impossible to overestimate the importance of what just happened in Syria with respect to the fall of the 54-year Assad regime and how it fits perfectly into the predicted scenario that the scripture gives us of the last days. Now, I was conflicted yesterday of coming on and giving update after update, but things just came swirling across the wire, story after story. And so this morning, what I thought I would do is basically summarize where we're at right now, because there's so many things we could say. But what's important for you to know, we're going to give you today in a nutshell. And this is something you can share with others and that are asking, what's going on? What does it mean with Bible prophecy? What doesn't it mean? So we're going to do that this morning. All right. If you have been with us since last October 7th, when the Hamas terrorist invasion of Israel took place, killing some 1,400 people and displacing, kidnapping some 200 plus others, you have heard us repeatedly say that what is happening now is not the predicted Ezekiel 38-39 invasion of Scripture. Although many people were saying it is just around the corner, it's going to happen, or this is it. And we said, no, it's not. In fact, Appendix 4 in our book, 25 Signs, we're near the end. We list 14 specific facts as to why this was so. The appendix question is, would a regional war between Israel and Iran fulfill Bible prophecy? Ezekiel 38-39. And the answer we said was a resounding no. The reason why is that Israel's military troubles and now were led by Iran, whose proxies, namely Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Assad regime with its radical Shia groups in Syria, were all locally working together militarily for the ultimate destruction of Israel. This is not the scenario the Bible predicts. It will eventually be Russia that will lead an invasion of Israel with Iran as its subordinate. Therefore, if you've been with us, you notice we constantly said that it is Iran's military adventurism that must decrease, while Russia's power in the Middle East must increase. This is precisely what's happened with recent events in Gaza, Lebanon, and now Syria. You really can't make this stuff up. Simply put, Syria's importance to Iran cannot be overestimated. For one thing, it is how Hezbollah was continually supplied militarily against Israel. However, with the elimination of some 80% of Hezbollah's leaders, its 18-year buildup in southern Lebanon, with its military assets basically all being destroyed now by the Israeli army as they came into southern Lebanon. And now its lifeline from Syria is gone because remember, Syria is where they received all their weapons. The lifeline was from the Assad regime in Syria. They allowed that to happen, to come from Syria into Lebanon to supply Hezbollah to attack Israel. Well, that's gone now. So Iran's proxies are now in a weakened state to do anything regionally against Israel. And that includes Gaza on the south with Hamas, Hezbollah in the north with in Lebanon, and then of course now Syria, which supplied everything with the ending of the Assad regime. So the Iranian threat now consists basically of a long-range missile with a nuclear warhead. Iran is not yet to the place where it could launch something like this, but as we're going to mention in the coming days, it seems that their nuclear program will soon be set back to the dark ages as its proxies have discovered in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. And we'll have more on that later. Some very interesting things are happening with respect to getting rid of Iran's nuclear program. All right, what we have laid out in our book, 25 Signs, we're near the end, particularly signs 9 through 11, is what the scripture says will occur in the last days with respect to Israel, the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion, the position of the United States, who will be involved, who will not be involved, etc., etc. We also go into great detail in another book we have written called the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion, where we go literally verse by verse from chapters 37 all the way through 39 to explain what the Bible predicts. Now, these are free downloads from our website, Educating Our World, under the headline of Bible Prophecy. And so we encourage you to take advantage of them. Download them for free, tell others to download them for free, And this will give you a thorough explanation of what Scripture predicts will happen. So, speaking of headlines, here are four stories that have greeted us this morning that kind of say it all. Headline number one, this is an excellent one: Death by Proxy, the fall of Assad and the collapse of Iran's regional strategy. How does it affect Israel? This is from Joel Rosenberg's All Israel News. I suggest you look at that website and this story. It is an excellent explanation of what's going on. And it's much longer what we can do right here, but it's something that gives more detail to what we're going to summarize. And here's just one of the takeaways. The recent fall of the Assad regime represents the culmination of Iran's strategic setbacks. Unlike previous interventions, this time Tehran appears to have calculated that the cost of intervention would be too high. The situation has deteriorated to the point where Iran now faces the humiliation of having to negotiate with Syrian rebel groups, forces it once dismissed as terrorist, to secure safe passage for its diplomatic personnel from Damascus. They're still stuck there. The rebels' capture of significant military assets from Assad's forces has further shifted the balance of power. These include the advanced air defense systems like Panzer S-1 and S-200, chemical weapon stockpiles, and substantial conventional military hardware. This is now all in the hands of the rebels. That was, which were Iranian assets there in Syria to be transferred, of course, to Lebanon at Hezbollah. This massive transfer of military capabilities represents not just a loss for Assad's forces, but here's the key: a strategic catastrophe for Iran's regional posture. Bingo, a strategic catastrophe now that Syria is out of the picture and to help support Iran with Hezbollah in the region. Headline number two from the Jerusalem Post: The fall of Assad. What does it mean for the U.S. and Israel? Now get this. Just 2 weeks ago, the dormant 13-year Syrian civil war was barely on the radar of American and Israeli political defense and security leaders, with everyone focused on Iran, Hezbollah, and Gaza. The lesson is that those who think they know what is coming next in Syria and the region are fooling themselves. Now, this is putting it mildly. Nobody saw this coming. Headline number three from AFP: Israel PM helped to topple Assad. Netanyahu warned Assad on November 27th, the day Syrian rebel offensive began, that Assad was playing with fire by supporting Hezbollah and helping to transfer weapons to Lebanon. But Netanyahu, like all the rest of us, never knew that Jolani intended to start an attack, and that's referring to Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, the Islamist chief of the rebel group that led the offensive in Syria. And of course, nobody calculated how the fact that Iran and Hezbollah were so weakened, it would damage Assad's ability to protect himself and his regime. The Syrian army basically laid down their weapons and welcomed the terrorists in. Assad left the country. He's now in Russia. And it's all over in a flash. And this is mind-boggling. It's a total surprise to everyone, including Israel. And finally, headline number four: Damascus now ruled by, I like this from Zero Hedge, a story by Al-Qaeda in suits as Assad emerges in Moscow. From the AFP, Bashar Assad and his family are now in Russia. The Russian news agencies say, since the overnight hours, Damascus has been under the control of the Islamist militants led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, and backed by Turkey. The country's President Bashar al-Assad has been overthrown after the extremely rapid insurgent, where city after city fell, starting with Aleppo in a matter of about a mere week. And just like that, over 50 years of Assad family rule has ended and a new extremely unpredictable era of Syria begins. So here's the big questions now. Will the country hopelessly fracture as did Iraq and Libya for years after their strongman leaders were overthrown? Will there be mass reprisal killings? Will Christians, Alawites, and Shia all be subject to mass persecution and extermination? Will the country, which has already been through hell in the last 13 years with the Syrian civil war that's been going on, of horrific proxy war, descend into sectarian and factional chaos and hell? Will Sharia law be enforced by gunpoint, or will some semblance of a stable transitional government emerge? These are the big questions that the coming days will answer. As for now, nobody knows what exactly will happen in the interim. However, what we do know is what will eventually take place in Syria, Israel, and the rest of the Middle East. How do we know this? Because the Bible tells us so. So stay tuned. There's so much more to come. But the takeaway, Iran has now lost all its regional allies to destroy Israel, the neighboring countries, the area of Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and now Syria. And so all they have left is the long range possibility of delivering some type of missile with a nuclear warhead to destroy Israel, which we know from scripture that will not happen. So there's so much more we're going to be saying in the coming days. So many more things we could say right now. We're going to kind of save them because there's some exciting things on the horizon. But just summarize it this way. The Bible is correct, as always, of what will happen. Iran will decrease, Russia will increase. As we said in the Middle East, the U.S. will be not a player in the last days, and all this will eventually fulfill. And the timing, we don't know when, how soon it'll be. We've got to be careful, not saying it's around the corner overnight, but eventually this will lead to a Russian invasion of Israel, led with also with the surrogates Turkey and Iran at its side. And this will, of course, be thwarted by the living God when he destroys all of the armies that come into the country to try and destroy Israel, who will be caught unaware at this time, as they were 51 years ago in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War, and as we're caught unaware last year on October 7th. All right, I'm Don Stewart. So much more to come. Thank you so much for watching, and please share all this with others, what we just told you. It really kind of summarizes it all to put it in perspective that the living God, the God of the Bible, knows exactly what's going to happen, and he's told us so much of this ahead of time. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.